Happy Neurodiversity Week. I'm Matt Jackson. I am the online learning designer at Open Awards. So I deal with all the designing new courses and internal training as well. Okay, well, I suppose this is something that sits quite very well with me, really, because growing up in the 1980s, I was diagnosed with dyslexia.
Okay.
And that meant that there was lots of stigma and misconceptions around that and diagnoses were not well, few and far between, and people didn't recognise things. And I was later labelled, and obviously found that that could come with lots of difficulty. And I mean, what we would now call a sort of neurodifference. But at that time, it wasn't quite like that. But I think the really important thing for actually celebrating it really is because we have now started to understand more about the human brain and how it works and how it's evolving.
Yeah.
And it's important to acknowledge that people who are neurodivergent are recognised for those unique strengths, abilities, and for being themselves. And really to get away from those labels that we've started to put on people, even though sometimes they can be quite helpful. Um, so really, the reason why I think we should be celebrating is that we need to change that conversation and use
Yeah.
this to highlight unique perspectives and strengths, and the things that neurodiverse individuals can benefit us within this society, because they think differently, they can change how we all look at things. And instead of just focusing on negative and challenges that they may have, let's have a look at how we can embrace the positive sides to that, as well as look at how we can support people who are neurodivergent as well. So, as I said before, sometimes labels and diagnoses can help people to establish a greater understanding of themselves, and also it can help the general public, employers, and in education as well. But also, this can also lead to some ignorance and misconceptions and misunderstanding.
Yeah.
And as I'm a former teacher of 15 years experience within SEND sector, I experience a wide spectrum of cognitive ability, of neurodivergent individuals, and I can see the potential of how these young people would think differently, and how those thoughts and how those that input could change the world in a positive way.
Yeah.
So why not celebrate it? So in having this week and celebrating our neurodiversity, I think we can educate and increase empathy and understanding for individuals with cognitive difference. And that can only be a good thing to lead to more supportive, inclusive environments for at home and in school and in college and the workplace. And I know this workplaces are increasingly becoming a lot more aware of neurodivergent, but I think schools have got a lot further to go. So this is really important from that point of view,
Yeah.
because I still think that there's a lot more work to needs to be done further in education. That's my reasons for my interest in this and for celebrating it. Yeah, well, I'm working on a course at the moment with an author and a consultant called Helen Clark, and we're working on a course that is to support the young person, or any young person, with what neurodiversity is, and explain some of that language, that what's neurotypical, what's neurodiverse,
Yeah.
and uh, sort of looking at what some of those characteristics are of somebody who might be neurodivergent, to give a greater understanding, so that it's not necessarily that somebody might think they are or have had diagnosis to be in that neurodivergent spectrum, but it might be that uh, it might be a way of opening that conversation up with somebody, if somebody is having problems with and challenges with a few things, and also if there is a diagnosis, and it's quite hard to have some of those conversations. So the idea is that this course is there to support a young person, really, and people around them. So it could be that you know if there's somebody in the family and a brother or sister has a diagnosis and a sibling is really misunderstanding that, then this would give them a bit of an understanding of what other person might be facing and different challenges.
Brilliant.
Because I think the important thing is that when, just like any young person, you're growing up and understanding the world around you. So it's important that, you know, navigating that world can be difficult for anybody who's neurotypical. So somebody who's got some of these neurodivergent differences might see things in different ways, and some of those things need to be addressed. So the idea is that this neurodivergent course will look at some of those issues and address some of those issues to try and be in a supportive voice, really. And
Yeah.
also the idea as well is that we would have another course that will come out a bit later on in the year that will run us alongside this, that would support parents and teachers
Brilliant.
with pupils who have either found out that they might have some diagnosis, or just finding things difficult. It might be that, well, it might not need to have a diagnosis. It might be that they just find things difficult, and it might be a way of them learning to understand more about themselves and how neuroscience has made us look at things differently, and how the brain works, and how we all can have some characteristics that might be classed as tendencies to do with some of these diagnoses that we have, but it doesn't mean to say that they define us, or they actually represent how we are. So it might be that it gives them that confidence to be able to talk about it with their families and friends.